because I couldn't find something as simple as keys. I sat in the living room armchair, the same one where Dorothy used to knit while watching soap operas on NBC, and began to cry. It wasn't just about the key situation, but everything. The loneliness, the uncertainty about the future, the feeling of losing little pieces of myself each day. It was at that moment I heard a gentle knock on the door. It was Catherine, accompanied by a surprise that would change everything, a 3-year-old beagle named Scout. The little dog had that typical coloration of the breed, white, brown, and black, and expressive brown eyes that seemed to understand exactly what I was feeling. "Dad, this is Scout," Catherine said with a smile on her face. "He was abandoned at the clinic 6 months ago. His previous owner trained dogs for scent competitions, you know. Scout has special abilities." The dog approached me slowly, as if he knew I needed time to accept his presence. His wet nose touched my hand, and I felt an immediate connection. It was as if he understood my pain, my confusion, my need for help. "What kind of special abilities?" I asked, wiping tears with the back of my hand. "He can find lost objects using only his sense of smell," Catherine explained, petting Scout's head. "The previous trainer used techniques similar to those employed in airports and rescue services. Scout can locate practically anything through the combination of scent and visual commands." At that moment, still skeptical, I decided to test. "So help me find my keys, Scout," I said half-heartedly. What happened next left me speechless. Scout tilted his head to the side, sniffed my hands for a few seconds, then headed directly to the bathroom. There, he began to scratch gently at the cabinet door under the sink. When I opened it, there were my keys, among the cleaning products. "How did he do that?" I asked incredulously. "Beagles have over 200 million olfactory cells," Catherine explained with professional enthusiasm. "Scout associates your personal scent with objects you touch regularly. It's like he has an olfactory map of the house." That night, Scout slept at the foot of my bed for the first time. As I listened to his calm and rhythmic breathing, I felt something I hadn't experienced in months: hope. Maybe I wasn't so lost after all. Maybe there was a way to live with my condition without completely losing my independence. The morning sun came through the kitchen window when I woke up the next day, and for the first time in months, I didn't feel that immediate anxiety to check if I still remembered where my things were. Scout was sitting beside my bed, with that patience characteristic of well-trained dogs, waiting for me to wake up completely. "Good morning, buddy," I said, still half asleep. He wagged his tail and made a small sound, almost as if he were responding to the greeting. Catherine had left a folder with detailed instructions on how to work with Scout. The material looked professional: diagrams, explanations about canine behavior, training schedules. I discovered that Scout's previous owner, a man named Benjamin, had worked with specialized training for more than 20 years. "Scout responds to commands in English," I read aloud from the first page. "The main commands are search to start the hunt, found when he locates the object, and stop to interrupt the action." The methodology was based on positive reinforcement techniques, similar to those used by professionals who train dogs to locate drugs or missing persons. We decided to start slowly. I took my reading glasses, those with gold frames that Dorothy had given me on my last birthday, and deliberately hid them behind the fern pot on the fire escape. Scout watched attentively as I walked around the house. "Scout, search glasses," I said, trying to use a firm but gentle tone. The dog immediately raised his head, sniffed the air for a few seconds, then began walking through the living room. His behavior was methodical. He didn't run desperately, but moved with purpose. He passed through the kitchen, sniffed some chairs, then headed directly to the fire escape. When he found the glasses, Scout didn't pick them up with his mouth. Instead, he sat next to the pot and began making a specific sound, a low, constant whine that clearly meant found. "Very good, Scout. Found," I said, taking the glasses and offering him a piece of bagel left over from breakfast. It was important to reward immediately, according to the instructions. Did you like seeing how Scout works like a real domestic GPS? Subscribe to the channel to follow this entire incredible journey. In the following days, we established a routine. Every morning, after breakfast, which I prepared with bagels from Goldberg's Deli on the corner and coffee made in a French press, as I learned from my father, we practiced location exercises. We started with simple objects: keys, wallet, glasses. Scout demonstrated an impressive ability. They weren't just tricks. He genuinely understood what I needed. When I said, "Search keys," with a worried tone, he immediately assumed a work posture: erect ears, active nose, precise movements. A particularly memorable episode happened on a rainy Wednesday. I had lost an important document, the house deed, that I needed to take to the clerk's office on Center Street to resolve a property tax matter. I searched for hours, on the living room table, inside books, among clothes in the closet. Nothing. "Scout, I need help," I said, genuinely distressed. "Search important paper." I realized this time would be different because Scout didn't know the specific smell of this document. But he approached me, carefully sniffed my hands, probably picking up residues from the paper I had handled, then began his search. The process took longer than usual. Scout methodically visited each room of the house, sniffing furniture, drawers, even the inside of the closet. Finally, he positioned himself in front of the bookshelf in the living room and began that characteristic whining. Initially, I didn't see anything, but Scout insisted, gently scratching the base of the bookshelf. That's when I realized the document had slipped and fallen into the narrow space between the bookshelf and the wall. "Incredible, Scout," I said, hugging the dog. "How did you manage to detect the paper down there?" At that moment, I understood that Scout wasn't just a trained pet. He was a genuine partner, adapting his skills to my specific needs. The trust between us grew each day. During afternoons, while we sunbathed in the small backyard, where Dorothy had cultivated her roses that I now tried to keep alive, I watched Scout resting in the shade of the apple tree. Sometimes I wondered if he really understood the extent of the help he was providing me. Dr. Mitchell was impressed when I told him about Scout during the monthly consultation. "It's fascinating, Mr. Thompson. Dogs have olfactory capabilities that we humans can barely comprehend. Scout is functioning as a kind of extension of your memory. But is this permanent, Doctor? Can I trust that he'll always be able to help me? The important thing is that you two continue practicing together. The bond between you is creating a unique partnership. Scout isn't just finding objects, he's learning to anticipate your needs." This observation from the doctor made sense. In recent days, I had noticed that Scout began paying attention, even when I didn't explicitly ask for help. If I stood in the middle of the room with a confused expression, he immediately put himself on alert, ready to help. At night, before sleeping, I always talked to Scout about the day. It might seem strange to talk to a dog, but he really seemed to listen. His ears stayed attentive, his head tilted to the side, as if processing each word. "Thank you for helping me today, Scout," I would say, petting his head. "I don't know what I'd do without you." And it was true. In just 2 weeks, my life had changed drastically. The constant anxiety of losing things had diminished significantly. I knew that if I lost something important, Scout would be there to help me. It was a cloudy Monday in June when we faced our first major challenge. Catherine had scheduled a medical appointment for me at Mount Sinai Hospital, and we needed to leave home at 8 a.m. Everything seemed normal until the moment to look for my wallet with the medical documents. "Scout, search wallet," I said, following our morning routine. But this time something was different. Scout methodically sniffed the entire house, living room, bedroom, kitchen, bathroom, and couldn't locate the object. He returned to me with that confused expression I was learning to interpret. "It can't be," I murmured, feeling the familiar tightness in my chest. Where could I have put it? Catherine arrived punctually at 7:45, finding me in a state of panic in the living room. Scout was sitting beside me, clearly sensing my distress. "Dad, calm down. Let's think together," she said, with that professional patience she developed working with frightened animals. "When was the last time you used the wallet?" "Yesterday afternoon," When I went to the deli to buy bagels, I replied, trying to concentrate, but I don't remember doing anything different when I came back. That's when I had an idea. Scout, search deli, I said, trying a different command. If Scout could associate smells, maybe he could track the path I had taken the day before. The dog immediately assumed his work posture, but this time his behavior was unique. Instead of searching inside the house, he headed to the front door and began scratching gently. "Does he want to go out?" Catherine asked. "Let's follow Scout," I decided. Maybe he detected something. We left the house, and Scout immediately headed toward Goldberg's Deli, 2 blocks away. We walked down McDougal Street, passing the old brownstones typical of Greenwich Village, with Scout constantly sniffing the air. The neighborhood's morning movement was beginning. People going to work, dogs being walked, the aroma of coffee coming from the cafes. Are you anxious to know if Scout will manage to solve this mystery? Don't miss the outcome. Subscribe to the channel. When we arrived at the deli, Mr. Goldberg, a 60-year-old man from Brooklyn who knew the entire neighborhood, greeted us with a smile. "Walter, good thing you came back. I was keeping this here for you." He went to the counter and picked up my wallet, which had been there since the previous day. "You forgot it when you came to buy bagels yesterday. I was going to bring it to your house later," Mr. Goldberg explained. I looked at Scout, who was wagging his tail intensely. He had done something I considered impossible, not only located a lost object, but tracked the entire path I had traveled the day before. "How did he know?" I asked Catherine on the way back. "Scout detected your scent on the route to the deli," she explained. "Beagles can follow olfactory trails for hours, sometimes days. He literally followed your steps from yesterday." We arrived at the hospital in time for the appointment. Doctor Mitchell was fascinated when I told him about the morning's episode. "Mr. Thompson, what Scout did is technically called scent tracking, an ability that police use with specialized dogs to find missing persons," the doctor explained. "He's adapting to your needs in a way that goes beyond conventional training." During the examination, Dr. Mitchell asked several questions about how I was feeling emotionally since Scout's arrival. "Doctor, can I be honest? For the first time in months, I no longer feel that constant fear of losing important things. Scout gave me back a security I thought I had lost forever." "That's remarkable," said the doctor, taking notes. "The emotional support Scout is providing may be slowing the progression of your symptoms. Stress and anxiety often accelerate memory problems." On the way home, we stopped at Washington Square Park for Scout to run a bit. While he played with other dogs, I talked to Catherine about the future. "Daughter, I'm beginning to believe I can maintain my independence for much longer than I imagined," I said, watching Scout interact happily with a golden retriever. "Dad, you can't imagine how much it relieves me to see this change. In recent weeks, you seem like a different person, more confident, calmer." It was true. Scout's presence had created a new structure in my life. It wasn't just about finding lost objects. It was about having a companion who genuinely cared about my well-being. That night, while preparing dinner, simple spaghetti with marinara sauce, a recipe I learned from Dorothy, I reflected on the day's events. Scout had demonstrated a capacity that went beyond what anyone expected. He wasn't just executing commands, he was really thinking, adapting, solving problems with me. "Scout, you surprised me today," I said, offering him a piece of cheese. "Thank you for not giving up, even when I was losing hope." He looked at me with those expressive brown eyes, and I swear I saw understanding there. It wasn't imagination. It was a real, deep connection between two beings who had found exactly what they needed in each other. Before sleeping, I called Catherine to thank her once more for bringing Scout into my life. "Dad, actually it was Scout who chose you," she said. "When I arrived at the clinic that afternoon to pick him up, he was restless, as if he knew something important was going to happen. I think he knew he had a mission." This observation touched me deeply. Maybe Scout really knew, in some instinctive way, that I needed him as much as he needed a new home. 3 months after the Delhi episode, Scout and I had developed a routine so synchronized it seemed like choreography. He not only found lost objects, he had become my personal navigation system, my living alarm, my constant companion in all daily activities. It was on an August afternoon, while organizing old papers in the improvised study I set up in the second room, that I discovered something surprising. Among yellowed documents and old photographs, I found an envelope with letters that Dorothy had written but never sent. Love letters addressed to me during our courtship. "Scout, look what I found," I said, showing him the letters. As always, Scout approached and carefully sniffed the paper, as if wanting to memorize that specific scent associated with my wife's memories. I decided to read one of the letters aloud. "My dear Walter, today I dreamed we were two birds flying together through the blue sky, never to be separated." My voice broke in my throat. Scout immediately approached and put his head on my lap, his way of offering comfort. At that moment, I had a revolutionary idea. If Scout could locate objects by smell, maybe he could help other people in the same situation as me. I called Catherine to discuss the possibility. "Dad, that's brilliant," she exclaimed. "At the clinic, we frequently receive families worried about elderly relatives who have memory problems. Scout could make a difference in many people's lives." The story is getting even more exciting. If you're following this incredible journey, subscribe to the channel and hit the notification bell so you won't miss any moment. We started small. Catherine mentioned Scout to Mrs. Eleanor, an 84-year-old lady who frequented the clinic with her cat Whiskers. Mrs. Eleanor lived alone in an apartment on the Upper West Side and constantly lost medications, keys, and important documents. Could Scout visit Mrs. Eleanor once a week? I asked Catherine. "Let's try. But first we need to see if Scout adapts to a different environment and another person." Our first visit to Mrs. Eleanor's house was on a cloudy Tuesday. The apartment was small but cozy, decorated with antique furniture and family photographs scattered across all surfaces. Mrs. Eleanor received us with coffee and apple pie, typical Midwest hospitality. "So this is the famous Scout," she said, observing him with curiosity. "Catherine told me he has special powers." "They're not powers, Mrs. Eleanor," I explained. "It's training and a lot of love. Scout learned to use his sense of smell to help people like us." To demonstrate, I asked her to hide her keys while Scout was distracted playing with Whiskers on the balcony. When she returned, I simply said, "Scout, search Mrs. Eleanor's keys." Scout stopped playing immediately, approached Mrs. Eleanor to capture her specific scent, then began exploring the apartment. It took him less than 5 minutes to locate the keys, which were inside a pot in the kitchen. "Good heavens!" exclaimed Mrs. Eleanor. "How did he do that?" "Scout associates each person's personal scent with the objects they handle regularly," I explained. "The more time he spends with us, the better he gets at this ability." From that day on, we began visiting Mrs. Eleanor weekly. Scout quickly became familiar with her apartment and developed a specific routine for locations in that environment. Even more impressive, he began anticipating her needs, positioning himself near places where she usually left important things. During one visit, I witnessed something extraordinary. Mrs. Eleanor was looking for her reading glasses with growing frustration. Before I even gave the command, Scout went to the bathroom and began whimpering softly near the sink. "He already knows where they are," said Mrs. Eleanor, amazed. "It's like he can read my mind." The glasses were exactly where Scout indicated, on the shelf next to the hygiene products. Word spread quickly through the neighborhood. Mrs. Margaret, Eleanor's neighbor, asked to meet Scout after hearing about his abilities. Soon, we were visiting 3 different families per week, each with their specific needs. "Scout is becoming a celebrity," I commented to Catherine during one of our evening conversations. "He seems to understand that he's helping people." "Dad, notice how he behaves differently with each person," she replied. "With you, Scout is more protective and affectionate. With Mrs. Eleanor, he's gentle and patient. With Mr. Frank, he's more playful. Scout is reading each person's personality." It was true. Scout had developed impressive emotional sensitivity. When we visited Mr. Frank, an 82-year-old retiree who lived with his daughter, Scout immediately picked up on the man's mood. If Frank was sad, Scout approached calmly and stayed quietly by his side. If he was cheerful, he played and performed little acts that drew laughter. A particularly memorable day occurred when we visited Mrs. Rose, a lady who had recently lost her husband of 60 years of marriage. She was inconsolable, desperately searching for her wedding ring that she had removed to wash dishes and could no longer find. "Please, Scout," she pleaded with tears in her eyes. "This ring is all I have left of him." Scout worked for over an hour, searching every inch of the house. Finally, he positioned himself near the plant pot in the living room and began gently scratching the soil. There was the ring, which had slipped from the kitchen sink and rolled to the pot. Mrs. Rose hugged Scout with such gratitude that I started crying too. At that moment, I understood that Scout wasn't just finding objects. He was returning important pieces of people's lives. "Thank you, my little angel," she whispered to Scout. "You gave me back my treasure." That night, as we walked home through the illuminated streets of Greenwich Village, I reflected on the journey we were living. Scout had started as my personal savior, but was becoming a community hero. "Scout, do you realize the good you're doing?" I asked, petting his head. "How many people have you already helped recover not just objects, but hope?" He looked at me with those wise eyes and wagged his tail gently, as if he perfectly understood the importance of the mission we had embraced together. The fall of 2024 brought an unexpected change to our lives. Scout's story had spread so much throughout Manhattan's neighborhoods that we began receiving calls from people in other states. A CBS News report about therapy dogs included a small segment about our activities, and suddenly we found ourselves at the center of attention I never imagined experiencing at 78 years old. "Walter, you've become famous," joked Mr. Goldberg at the deli on a sunny morning, while I bought the usual bagels. "I saw you on television last night. Scout is a star." Fame brought responsibilities. Catherine suggested we better structure our volunteer work to be able to help more people in an organized way. We created a small group with 5 other volunteers, 2 retired veterinarians, a psychologist specializing in seniors, and 2 veterinary medicine students from Columbia University. "Dad, we need to document the methodology you developed with Scout," Catherine explained during a meeting at home. "Other people could train their dogs using similar techniques." That's how I began writing a detailed diary of each session with Scout. I noted which commands worked best, the types of objects most difficult to locate, people's emotional reactions when they recovered important items. The material ended up becoming a small manual we distributed free to interested families. One of the most touching cases from that period involved Mrs. Marina, a 79-year-old retired teacher who suffered from severe depression after partially losing her sight. She had stopped leaving home and constantly lost her belongings, which further increased her sense of incapacity. This story is transforming real lives. If you want to continue following this exciting journey, don't forget to subscribe to the channel. "I don't believe a dog can help me," Mrs. Marina said during the first visit, with that bitterness typical of someone who has lost hope. "I can barely see properly. Now I can't even remember where I put things." Scout, with his characteristic sensitivity, approached her very slowly and simply lay at her feet, making no noise. He remained there for almost 10 minutes, as if saying, "I'm here, no rush, at your pace." Gradually, Mrs. Marina began petting Scout while we talked. When she lost her cell phone during our visit, she'd put it somewhere while making coffee. Scout located the device in less than 3 minutes inside the refrigerator. "How did he know?" she asked, genuinely surprised. "I don't even remember opening the refrigerator." "Scout picked up the scent of your hands on the phone and followed the trail to where you had been," I explained. "He doesn't need you to remember. He remembers for you." This phrase marked a turning point in Mrs. Marina's attitude. In the following weeks, she began asking Scout to locate specific objects, testing the limits of his ability. Gradually, her confidence returned. The most emotional moment happened when she lost her college graduation ring, her most precious possession, representing years of struggle to graduate in education at a time when few women reached higher education. "Scout, please," she said with a broken voice. "This ring means my whole life. Without it, I feel like I've lost my identity." Scout worked for 2 hours, methodically exploring each room of the apartment. Finally, he positioned himself next to the washing machine and began his characteristic whining. The ring had fallen into the narrow space between the machine and the wall. Mrs. Marina cried when she recovered the ring, and for the first time since I met her, she smiled genuinely. "Scout gave me back more than a ring," she said. "He gave me back my dignity." These successes brought unexpected invitations. The Department of Aging invited us to present our work at a conference on active aging. Universities began showing scientific interest in documenting Scout's abilities. "Mr. Thompson, what you've developed has potential to become an official senior assistance program," explained Dr. Robert Hayes, a geriatrician from Mount Sinai, who followed some of our patients. Scout is providing not just practical support, but genuine emotional therapy. By the end of 2024, we had helped over 30 families. Scout knew the specific sense of dozens of different people and could work efficiently in various environments. More importantly, each person we helped recovered not just lost objects, but self-esteem and hope. One December afternoon, while resting in the backyard after a particularly intense visit, I watched Scout sleeping peacefully in the shade of the apple tree. His paws moved slightly, as if he were dreaming. "What are you dreaming about, buddy?" I murmured. "Maybe about all the people you've helped." Catherine arrived at that moment, bringing important news. "Dad, we received an official invitation from the mayor's office. They want to create a pilot project based on your work together. It would be the first municipal memory support dogs program in the country." I looked at Scout, who had woken up and was watching me with those expressive eyes. I thought about the entire journey we had traveled together, from that rainy afternoon when he came into my life to this moment of official recognition. "What do you think, Scout? Ready to make it official?" He wagged his tail enthusiastically, as if he perfectly understood the importance of that moment. Our small personal mission was transforming into something much bigger. Today, 2 years after the official start of the Scout program by New York City, I write these final words on a golden March morning, watching my 5-year-old companion playing in the backyard with 3 new puppies who joined the program: Luna, Max, and Honey. All beagles trained based on the methodology we developed together. What began as a personal solution to my memory problems became the first municipal cognitive support dog program in the United States. Today, we help over 200 families per month, spread across all 5 boroughs of New York City, with a waiting list of over 400 people. "Dad, I never imagined it would reach this point," Catherine said last week during the inauguration of the 2nd training center in Brooklyn. "Scout revolutionized not only your life, but the lives of thousands of people." It's true. The numbers are impressive, but for me, the most important are the individual stories, like Mr. Albert, 85 years old, who returned to leaving home after his Beagle Princess learned to locate his canes and medications, or Mrs. Lucy, who recovered 30 years of family photographs she thought were lost forever when Max found them in a forgotten box in the attic. If this journey touched your heart, subscribe to the channel to discover more stories that prove it's never too late to start over. Dr. Mitchell, my neurologist, was fascinated by my evolution. "Mr. Thompson, your tests show a remarkable stabilization of memory loss," he told me at the last appointment. "The constant cognitive stimulation that working with Scout provides seems to have created a protective effect in your brain." Scout has also changed. At 5 years old, he has developed special wisdom. He can assess a person's emotional state in seconds and adapt his approach accordingly. When working with someone very anxious, he moves more slowly with calming gestures. With depressed people, he stays closer, offering consoling physical presence. The most challenging case we faced recently was 12-year-old Johnny, a boy with severe ADHD who constantly lost school supplies. His mother, Patricia, was desperate. "He lost 3 calculators this semester," she told me during our first visit. "The teachers think it's lack of responsibility, but I see that he genuinely can't remember where he leaves things." Scout connected with Johnny immediately, maybe because he recognized a kindred spirit, someone with a mind that works differently. In 2 weeks, he had taught Johnny to use simple commands to locate school objects. "Mr. Walter," the boy said with contagious enthusiasm, "Scout is like a superhero, isn't he? He has superpowers." "They're not superpowers, Johnny," I replied, ruffling his hair. "It's love, training, and lots of practice. Any dog can learn as long as someone believes in them." This interaction made me reflect on the legacy Scout and I are building. It's not just about finding lost objects. It's about restoring dignity, independence, and hope to people who thought they had lost those things forever. Our methodology was adopted by similar programs in Los Angeles, Chicago, and Boston. International universities began studies on cognitive support dogs, using our work as a scientific foundation. But for me, real success is in small moments. When Mrs. Mary cried when recovering her wedding ring she thought was lost forever. When Mr. Charles, a retired businessman, rediscovered his passion for painting after his beagle Buddy began helping him find his art supplies. When entire families began visiting their elderly relatives more frequently, because now they could contribute something positive instead of just witnessing decline. We've reached the end of this incredible journey. If you were moved by this real story, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and share with someone who also needs inspiration. Scout today trains new dogs that come to the program. It's incredible to watch him teaching Luna how to approach a scared person or showing Max the correct technique for sniffing in small spaces. He became Scout today, trains new dogs that come to the program. It's incredible to watch him teaching Luna how to approach a scared person, or showing Max the correct technique for sniffing in small spaces. He became a natural mentor, passing on not only technical skills, but also the emotional sensitivity he developed during our years together. On quiet afternoons, when we don't have scheduled visits, Scout and I still practice our original routines. "Scout, search glasses," I say, hiding them behind plants or inside books. He still finds them in seconds, but now it's more about maintaining our connection than actual necessity. Sometimes I wonder what would have happened if Catherine hadn't brought Scout that rainy March afternoon. Maybe I would have given up my independence. Maybe I would have become just another elderly man lost in his own mental confusion. Instead, Scout taught me that aging doesn't necessarily mean losing everything. Sometimes it means finding unexpected partners who help us discover strengths we didn't know we possessed. As I write these final words, Scout approaches and places his head on my knee, as he does every morning. His brown eyes look at me with that mixture of wisdom, affection, and loyalty that only he possesses. It's as if he knows I'm reminiscing about our journey together. "Scout, my friend," I whisper, stroking his soft ears, "you taught me that no matter how old we are or what challenges we face, there's always a second chance to be useful, to make a difference in other people's lives." He tilts his head to the side, in that characteristic gesture that means he's paying attention to every word. At my 80 years, I can say with certainty, Scout didn't just change my life. He gave me a reason to keep living with purpose and dignity. The phone rings in the living room. It's another family needing help. Scout immediately perks up his ears, already knowing we have work ahead. He stands up, wags his tail, and looks at me as if saying, "Come on, partner. We have people to help." I get up from the chair, take his leash from the hook next to the door, and we prepare for another day of mission. Because that's what I discovered. Aging doesn't mean stopping being needed. Sometimes it just means finding a new way to serve. Scout and I proved that age is just a number when you have a heart willing to love and hands ready to help, even if those hands are furry paws and a nose always ready to sniff out hope where it seemed lost. This is our story. The story of two companions who discovered that it's never too late to start a new chapter, especially when that chapter is dedicated to returning dignity and joy to those who thought they had lost them forever. The morning sun streams through the window as I close this journal, and Scout is already by the door, ready for our next adventure. At 80, I've learned that every day is a gift, and every person we help is a reminder that our lives still have meaning. "Ready for another day of making miracles happen, Scout?" I ask, clipping on his service vest with the official city seal. He barks once, his way of saying always ready, and together we step out into the bustling streets of New York City, where somewhere someone is waiting for hope to find them through the incredible nose of a remarkable beagle named Scout. Thank you for following this emotional journey to the end. If this story touched your heart, subscribe to the channel and share it with someone who also needs to believe that there's always hope.